As we deepen into our service, let us set the tone for this service with the reading for a New Beginning by John Donahue. In out-of-the-way places of the heart, where our thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you are ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness grow inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. Wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight. When your courage kindled and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure, hold nothing back, learn to find ease and risk, and soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you. Our chalice lighting words this morning entitled Beneath the Turning Sky, author unknown. Beneath the turning sky, the soul breathes slow, its dark hands cupping seeds like vows. Roots braid the silence where the rivers flow, and wind combs silver through the leaning boughs. The mountains keep their watch in patient stone, their shadows stretching long across the plain, while oceans hum in languages unknown, salt hymns that rise and fall like summer rain. We walk this garden, brief as morning light, our footprints fading where the wild things run, yet every leaf remembers us at night and asks if we have honored what we've won. O earth, your pulse is older than our name. May we be worthy stewards of your flame. Amy Jacobson is the executive director of Prairie Action North Dakota, where she focuses on creating and executing high-impact media and communication strategies to drive progressive change and amplify diverse voices. With a background in issue-based communications, she has been actively involved in advocating for women and families, including her role as first staff person for Planned Parenthood in North Dakota. Amy has been recognized for her work, including receiving the YWCA, or Cass Clay Woman of the Year Award in 2016 for her advocacy efforts. May I present Amy Jacobson?
Thank you for having me here today, to inviting me to speak with you all. I was reflecting on the fact that I have actually been here before, but it was so many years ago. I do see some familiar faces during some work that I did both with the North Dakota Women's Network, which you may remember was a really important advocacy organization based here in Bismarck, where I served on their board, and we did a lot of really great work back then for women and families. So it's good to be back in this space again today. When I was thinking about my presentation, at Prairie Action, we were working this week on some communications around National Library Week. And you know, National Library Week really focuses on the value and the role that libraries play both in our lives and like in our communities. And so I was reflecting, it's interesting that you mentioned Williston earlier, because I was reflecting about when I was a really small child, I spent a lot of time. They had an old, beautiful library. It's no longer the main library, but as a really young child, I'd be in that space, and you know, really being in a library and really brought forward some creativity, the idea where ideas matter, and it's where learning kind of opens doors. And so I didn't have the exact language for it then, but I really understood that what I was experiencing was access. I was experiencing access to opportunity, to knowledge, and to something much bigger than myself. And so I actually really connected greatly with the little story that was read, that Sandra read to the children today. It's much about like the evolution of some work that I'm going to share with you all that we're going through right now in North Dakota. That's really important. And it's all about really one person using their voice, but then finding people with shared values and then working together to create that change, which was exactly what the children did in that story. So it was wonderful to see and kind of connected to my thoughts on access to information starting at a young age. But today I work at Prairie Action North Dakota. So we are a communication and digital advocacy organization. We do statewide work. There's just two of us, but we work from our homes, but we live in Fargo. But we are have connected to people all across North Dakota. The goal of our work, we really focus on economic and social justice issues and building power by amplifying voices and then advancing policies that improve the lives of working people in our state of North Dakota. So really that work at its core is about connection. We bring people together from all across all kinds of communities, all across the state, across all kinds of issues. So we are a multi-issue focused organization, and sometimes even across differences. People who hold different opinions on things, but we can find that shared value and to take action on things that really matter the most to us in our lives. And that's what kind of the theme that you've all been focusing on kind of played perfectly into this, because this is really about embracing possibility. When we come together, we can make that real, because possibility is something that we build, and we build it together. So over the last 20 years that I've been doing this sort of work in North Dakota, I've learned, and I'm sure many of you have learned as well, that change that we need to see, it doesn't happen in a boardroom necessarily. It doesn't happen necessarily at the Capitol here in Bismarck, but it really starts with people, with individuals, and it starts by listening. It starts with our finding and connecting on our shared values, and then it grows when more voices become part of that movement and take part in the conversation. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit about one specific bucket of work that we've been working on at Prairie Action with a whole host of organizations across the state for several years now, because I think it really ties together the idea of embracing possibility and some real bright work that we're doing in North Dakota during some really kind of dark times for our state and our country. But many of you are probably familiar, I'm going to assume you're familiar with the effort to ensure K-12 students in North Dakota get meals at school at no cost to their family or to themselves. At the core, this is a really simple idea. Feed kids so they can learn. Because when kids are hungry, they can't focus. They fall behind in their coursework, and school can become harder than it really needs to be. But also, it's a really practical issue for families in North Dakota. For many households, what it costs for a parent or a guardian to pay their school meal bill every year is about $1,000 per student that they have in school per year. So when we're talking about universal school meals at no cost to families, that's really about putting money back into the pocket of working families at a time when we know that costs are rising and it's becoming incredibly difficult to ensure that all of our needs are being met. But this issue is something that we don't always see, and that's why I think it's such a great opportunity for everybody to be involved in, and that is because of the broad support for school meals. This broad support is really across communities across the entire state. People are involved with it. It's across economic issues. So feeding kids at school at no cost is about all children, and most North Dakotans really do support making sure that happens. And it's across political ideologies, which is incredibly important. I think right now, as I mentioned, in this time that we're in, when everything's incredibly divided, and we mentioned earlier, it's just we all feel a lot of anger every day and frustration in our life. Working on universal school meals for our kids is something I see as a connector, and really gives us highlights what we can do if we move forward together. And it's really because it's not really even a partisan issue, and we're not going to let it be a partisan issue. A lot of the things that we work on at Prairie Action and with our partners get politicized, but when it comes down to it, this is an issue that's about kids, and it's about families, and it's about making a smart investment in our communities. But like practical solutions, it's faced quite a few barriers to feeding our kids, mostly during the legislative process. We've had a couple of legislative sessions in which there's been several bills, there's been 2-3 sessions now when legislators have had school meals at no cost to families in front of them to vote on. I think in totality it's actually 5 bills that they've defeated during that time. Each time we have gotten, there are silver linings, like we do win forward, right? We are seeing income eligibility limits increased. More kids were being able to be fed at school or falling into certain programs, but it wasn't what ultimately the people of North Dakota are asking for, which is for breakfast and lunch for all of our kids at no cost to the families. So we just kept hearing no at the legislature. But instead of just continuing in that path and waiting for another legislative session to come around, people really leaned in and asked, what if we did this together? Like, what if we carried this work outside of the legislature? That's where possibility really began to take shape. So a coalition was formed. It's a really coalition of all kinds of people. We have organizations like union leaders, or educators, faith communities, parents, organizations from all across the state. I didn't check our list if you all are signed on, but potentially you probably are. Signed on to the Together for School Meals Coalition. And it's not because we agree on everything, and quite honestly, there's a lot of things that these organizations and individuals don't agree upon, but we do agree upon this. So, no child should go hungry at school. Supporting families, that strengthens communities, and investing in kids is the right thing to do. So the decision was made to take the issue directly to the people through an initiated ballot measure. And the North Dakota State Constitution actually provides this right to North Dakotans. It's called the powers reserved to the people. I know you all are pretty politically savvy folks, and you're probably very aware of that. But I don't want to ever lose the opportunity to express to people how important it is that our state constitution provides this right to people. It is an option for us to be able to solve issues that we know are real hard issues in our communities that are not being solved or addressed necessarily by policymakers or elected politicians. So it's in the state constitution, powers reserved to the people, initiate and refer ballot measures. And as a caveat, this is such an important right that we sometimes see it come under attack. And so as we continue to want to be able to make sure that we have this right that's been protected to us for over 100 years, we should also be paying attention to those who are trying to diminish that right. But bringing people together really meant we needed to come together, we needed to trust each other, we needed to begin organizing, and it meant asking people not just to agree on things, but and to sit around and drink coffee and to talk about it, but to actually act. Together, we are going to make this happen. We are going to make this happen in North Dakota. So where we started was just over 100 days. After session was over, we wrote our policy in just over 100 days in the middle of a North Dakota winter, and I'm sure many of you were signing the petition. We had our petition circulating to be placed on the ballot. We turned in 57,000 signatures just a couple of weeks ago to the Secretary of State. That's nearly double what is required, and we are thrilled to be able to have put that forward to the Secretary of State, because every single signature on that packet, on those packets, was somebody here in North Dakota, a North Dakotan who said, yes, this matters, and we need you to be paying attention. So it was pretty powerful to be able to see. So right now where we are is kind of in the next phase of the work. The signatures, as I said, have been submitted to the Secretary of State, and we are waiting certification to be placed on the ballot in November is our goal. And that's a moment that really does matter, because if approved, the decision will no longer rest in kind of a small group of elected politicians, but it's going to rest in the voters of North Dakota and with all of us here. But reaching the ballot is not actually the finishing line, it's actually the starting line for the next phase, because for this to be successful, the momentum has to continue. Sorry, I have a little bit of a pretty nose. I have allergies as well, Rania. The conversations have to continue. The coalition has to stay strong, not only stay strong, but it needs to grow. We call ourselves Together for School Meals. Like I said, we are a whole host of organizations right now. You can go on our website. You can add your organization, your church, your own individual name in support of school meals. We have over 70 organizations at this point in time, and we're just getting started. More voices need to be brought into the conversation. And so this is really where embracing possibility becomes a shared responsibility. It's not just about believing that something can happen, but it's about doing the work to make it happen, to make it real. Because we need to talk to our neighbors, we need to share information, we need to add the organizations onto the coalition, and we need to show up because ultimately, like I said, the voters are going to decide, and we cannot lose this momentum or this opportunity. And that's really something that's incredibly powerful because it means that this issue, this investment in our families, investment in our children, will be decided by the people. And that's what happens when we amplify our voices and people show up. But this isn't actually just about one campaign either. It's about what it can prove. It proves that when we come together around those shared values, and it proves that we can find those shared values, which I know are feeling harder and harder every day, that we can build coalitions across differences. And when it comes to school meals, and we say that it's wildly popular, and we're coming across, reaching across political divides in order to make sure that it happens. Every single poll by any entity that you can think of on any side of this political spectrum that asks voters about school meals, about providing school meals at no cost, is almost 80% of people in North Dakota want this to happen. So it's wildly popular. So the fact, and bang our head on the wall, that it's been defeated in bill form like 5 times, right? When that last time happened during special session, that's when we really saw the flood of individuals reaching out to us and saying, how can I help? This is going to be one of the things that we can really do to unite North Dakotans on something that's good for North Dakota. We don't have to wait for permission from the state to do it. And that's what's so great. Again, it's really just a really beautiful thing to be a part of. And it gives us so much hope. Because when people step in and we organize and we collaborate and we take the ownership for the things that we want to see done in our community, possibility expands. And so what does this mean for all of us? It means that embracing this possibility is not going to be a one-time act. It's going to mean practice. We're going to have to choose to stay engaged even when we're feeling exhausted and tired, and please do take time when you need to take time. But the more voices and individuals and organizations involved, the more that we're able to take time for ourselves and kind of spread out the energy and the work. We need to continue to build relationships in any effort that we're doing when we're connecting on shared values. Staying engaged and building those relationships is so incredibly important to believe that progress is possible and to keep that passion going forward. When we unite, we can keep that fire burning. And we know, and we say this all the time, and I think we know this even in the announcements that you shared today, right? North Dakota is a place where people show up for each other. And we really do show up for each other. And when we bring that same spirit to our civic life, which I know is incredibly important to you all in the UU, but to so many people, when we bring that support for each other to civic life, we can and we will create something that's much bigger than just one issue. We really are creating a culture of possibility, of hope, and of change. So I am going to wrap up here, but I hope that you carry with you that the future of our state isn't fixed, it's shaped. And it's shaped every day by the voices that we lift up when we work together and we're willing to do things together and when we embrace that. And so we don't need to just imagine someday there will be a better North Dakota, but we're building it. So thank you.
You had mentioned this particular topic about school lunches and that it's a bipartisan thing and a lot of support bipartisan. I was wondering about other issues that you have found to have had that bipartisan support in trying to grow that coalition's bipartisan-wise.
I think that's been an evolving sort of situation. And like I mentioned, years ago doing this work, the last time I was here speaking to you all was on the issue of an abortion ban in 2014. And that is when the legislators tried to ban abortion and citizens came together to push back and defeat that. And that was done in a bipartisan effort. We try to maybe not put the labels on it because people really do fall in that spectrum, but it's always put on us, right? And that effort, we defeated that abortion ban. 2-1 voters defeated that abortion ban in every county except for one. And it really was, again, a shared value across political ideologies. And that was a long time ago now. But I would say that we still do see that work happening. And oftentimes it's just maybe on a smaller scale. I feel like a lot of things have returned more to like a municipal or real local level where people are better able to work together. Everything is so hyper divided right now. And sometimes, honestly, it is hard, right, to like get beyond some other values another individual organization might have that are completely antithesis to your own. But we do see that, and we've seen it a lot in the work that we've done to protect democracy. So when I was speaking about protecting our constitutionally protected right, to initiate ballot measures, there are constantly attacks on them. There's two that we'll be voting on this year, one in June and one in November, that are both attempts to restrict citizens' initiated right or protected right to initiate ballot measures. A lot because of things like this, it gets outside of their control, right? They tried to take it over because they wanted to control how it played out. And so that's another place where we're seeing people across the political spectrum engage in democracy protection, which has been an interesting experience as well.
I'm Macy. I have two technical questions with the bill.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of kids lately have been homeschooled, and some of them are even using the public school online programs. Is there a clause in there or anything that says, hey, these kids also get fed too in some kind of capacity?
There is not a clause that says that. The way that we have, and this is an amendment to the state constitution, and the way that we wrote it was as broadly as we thought that we could, which included breakfast and lunch. It's required participation by public schools. It's optional participation by private schools. But part of it is, in order to participate in the program, your school needs to participate in the federal school meals program so that those funds flow to our state. I can't say definitively, but the people or women that I work with who are highly engaged in actual school, like work in dispersing school meals, have indicated that students who are homeschooled that are oftentimes do participate in some activity at the school, music, whatever it might be, and that those students could qualify for the meals, but they'd have to come to the school to have them. But we'd still have to I think those things will be flushed out, but it's been a question we've been asked.
And then the second question is the funding. I would imagine
Yeah.
it comes from the Department of Trust Lands.
So, so we wrote this measure kind of broadly. We wrote it so that the legislature will determine where the funds come from, and if there's an issue with that, the backup funds are our state legacy fund earnings. Now, mind you, there are like $14.5 billion in our legacy fund, and that could fund school meals for 200 years if we try, so they do have the flexibility in finding out where it is. One of the concerns that we do sometimes hear from people is that they think that some legislators, out of retaliation, would attempt to take the funds from like K-12 funding instead. And we know very clearly, it's been stated by like Levi Bachmeyer, the head of DPI, has said that is a false choice. So we need to kind of continue to ride on that and know that there are dollars. We're a wealthy state, in fact, and that legacy fund might be the best option for them.
So with that legacy fund, it's a stagnant number now that we're giving so much tax rebates to our oil companies. Mm-hmm. So that number isn't necessarily increasing except when we go put it in like stocks or trades or whatever we do. So, and that money wouldn't just cover, so you said 200 years, but it is also giving grants to schools to renovate, all that stuff. So if the funds don't get replenished, how much left would it still be sustainable? Or is this forever that we want this part of the Constitution, or is it for a set amount of time? And I think that's where some of the concern lies in the funding and how that legacy fund is used.
So those are really good questions. And it is an amendment to the state constitution, and we chose it there because that in the state constitution we aligned it with where public schools were drafted and protected. Those are really good questions, and that's why we did leave the determination on the funding every session. The legislators will be able to look at, see where the funding needs to come from in order to sustain the program. But we have the backstop as the legacy fund. So there would be a secondary source if there's others struggling. So if during the special session, the Republicans that championed the school meals bill that didn't pass, they found a path that they thought would be a fundable path to making sure that it happened as well.
Is there any data that says when you do this, this is what happens with our kids?
Yeah, that's starting to come out. So, it's not long-term studies, but we are definitely seeing, first of all, when school meals are made available at no cost, we're seeing kids eat. And we're seeing kids eat breakfast, the most important meal of the day, and they're beginning to show improved attendance and test results. So those are the sorts of things that are starting to come out from states like Colorado and New Mexico. There's been a few other states. Some of it's fairly newer, so we're waiting to kind of get through that. But they're even expanding their programs because of the success to make it an even more important program for their communities.
So with the money conversation, of those 10 states, are they showing that this actually increases productivity to tie that back to we spent money on this is the money we're getting back? Does any of the data show that?
Well, how I would answer that is the first, it's not an actual set of data, but what we know is parents will have about $1,000 per student back in their pocket every year. So that's going to have an economic impact in those families in our communities. I think what we've seen from the other states is they're beginning to see the better attendance, which is, I think, key. Especially they're seeing in the high school level, the kids that are actually eating are being more productive. I don't know that we have any empirical studies yet that have been done just tracking that, other than knowing that the programs, the kids are eating, they're doing better in school, and they're having better attendance. When we first started trying to work on the measure, the messages against us were you have kids, you should feed them yourself. If you're going to have a family, that's your responsibility. There's no kids who are starving in North Dakota, and that's a completely false thing. This is what they're saying. And that the kids who need it are getting it, which can be true. We did move. Not fully true. The first time we passed it, we didn't pass it, but we got the state to leverage the increased income eligibility limit. So more low-income children were able to receive breakfast or lunch at school. So we were able to incrementally, through the pressure of our larger ask, get them to do that. But what's important, really important for us, so it is about those kids. It's about the kids on the margin, especially in today's economy and is when you're on a borderline between an economic, a number that says you qualify or you don't qualify for something. There's a lot of kids and families on that margin, or people who don't even apply. We want to make sure to capture them. But then, to be quite honest, what people and the people of North Dakota were telling us is that we want this for all of our kids.
We extinguish the chalice with these closing words by Molly Ivins and Ann Richards, respectively. Molly Ivins. Sit up, join up, get in line, get in touch, find out who's raising hell, and join them. Ann Richardson. The here and now is all we have, and if we play it right, it's all we need.